Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hey, this is Rob, Old Guy Tech TV, and I'm here today with Gerri Grego, running for Supervisor, District 5 in El Dorado County. First of all, Gerri, thank you very much for coming in and visiting our little studio. And I tell almost all candidates running, it's a thankless job. And win, lose, or draw, I want to thank you for running. Because in politics, we need people with all different ideas and thoughts and messages and whatever it may be. And just you running helps us. Because, you might bring something up that nobody else will bring up. And you've got something to say, and you've got some experience. And so right off the bat, I just want to thank you for spending the time running. Like I said, it's thankless, and you're on the go forever. Fortunately, June isn't too far away for you, so that'll be great. So why don't you, let's do a little introduction. Why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the audience, and go for it.
Okay. I was born in Southern California and lived for a little bit in Wyoming and Las Vegas before I moved to Lake Tahoe 34 years ago.
Wow, good for you.
So I've been there a long time.
Yeah.
And never thought I would be doing this. At some point in my life, an opportunity came up to get involved in the general plan for the city of South Lake Tahoe, representing the place I work for. And so I went there, and somebody suggested at that point that they had an opening on the general plan, and they said, why don't you apply for it? So I did and got on there, and it was a wonderful experience for me because I realized that I had the abilities to study volumes of material in a short period of time.
Oh, yes, you need to on a planning commission.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you come in and you come to your meetings prepared and with questions. And I don't claim to know everything, but what I don't know, I'll go to the experts and find the answers to. I'll ask the questions.
That's right.
And so I go prepared and I ask questions and then make reasonable decisions, because I think the reason I am running for office is I see so many things that just don't make sense to me. And I would like to, I don't know, lots of times when you get on the other side of the chair,
yes,
you see that it's not as simple as you
thought. Yeah.
And I'm expecting some of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel that my abilities will make me a good supervisor for the county.
Excellent. Well, having some experience sitting on a commission or whatever it is makes a big difference. And I have been very fortunate. I've sat on a number of commissions, and this is not about me, but also the grand jury. And so you learn a lot of what's going on. That's given me the ability to do these interviews and dig deep a little bit and find out what you are all about. So you made a statement real quick there. You made a statement saying that there were things that didn't make sense that's going on in the county. Why don't you touch base a little bit on what you mean by that?
Okay. For one thing, all the plans and the studies, it's like they seem to be able to kick the can down the road just a little longer than they need to.
Okay.
And spending a lot of money to do that. There's points where you need studies because you don't know everything. But at the same time, I think common sense could be used in a lot of those instances.
So I'm aware of a couple of situations where they've hired consultants to come in. We have a bullying consultant now happening in El Dorado County. You must be aware of that.
Yes.
What's your feeling on that?
Well, my big concern is, okay, you feel there needs to be a bullying consultant, then there's a problem. But more important than that, even without the consultant, the turnover in El Dorado County is horrendous.
Right.
I manage a small business, and my staff, they stick around.
Right.
Because they're treated well and they're treated with respect. They make a livable wage. It's not the highest. They could go someplace else and get a better wage. But they like working for me because I treat them well.
Right.
And and so there's something going on somewhere that is not happening in the county.
Yeah, it does seem kind of strange that we obviously have a situation going on in the county somewhere, and may it be the department heads or the electeds, doesn't matter. There is a problem somewhere. So I understand when you talk about not making sense, because we all look at those dollars and cents being spent, and you kind of go, really? I mean, and I'm going to
I was looking at the budget.
Yeah.
They have so many thousands of dollars spent on crime or fraud prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then they have an account for fines, money coming in for fraud prevention.
Right.
It doesn't even come close to the amount
Covering
of money
the cost.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have to ask, how is it ineffective what they're doing, or are they just not doing it?
Well, it's underfunded mandates is what happens, and it's that type of thing you find not only in county levels, but you find it in state levels, and as you go
Right.
to the federal levels, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So unfortunately it's not unusual. I mean, if you get in deep and you start looking at the Transportation Commission, or worse yet, Transit Authority, when you look at fare box return. When you get on the board and you start
Right.
studying that, that's one of those things you need to look at, because it's abysmal, and unfortunately, transportation in general is a poor payer. It really never covers itself. So that's one of those things that you have to.
I am
deal
on
with.
the Transportation Regional Coordinating Council in South Lake Tahoe. Well, it's for the basin.
Okay.
Okay. And right now I'm on it because I'm on the Commission on Aging.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to figure out how to get seniors to their doctors and to stuff like that when they
Right.
can't drive anymore.
Right.
All these types of things. And Commission on Aging is a great program.
Good.
And they do so many worthwhile things for the senior community.
Is there a dial-a-ride type of situation up in Tahoe?
There
Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Mhm.
Yeah, well, ours is called Blue Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have door-to-door service.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes the seniors need more than that.
Mm-hmm.
They need a little
sure.
more care. And so there's been a van up in Lake Tahoe that hasn't been used for years because they haven't had the volunteers to do it on a steady schedule. Once they get the volunteers and then going, it takes the seniors a while to figure out the schedule.
Sure.
And by the time they get there, the volunteers are gone.
Yeah.
And so we're working on seeing if we can come together with other entities and hire a driver who is capable of dealing with seniors and getting them to and from, and
Right.
making it a lot better for
It's
everyone.
very difficult to depend on volunteers.
It is.
So
It is.
I understand that entirely. So
Although I tell you, I just did an inspection of the nutrition program in Tahoe. And it's amazing how many meals and how professional they all do. And most of it is volunteers.
yeah, Meals on Wheels is in El Dorado County has been a great asset.
Absolutely.
And they're it's amazing what they do. It really is. They do a great job. And I've watched them because I've gone into the building. It's the old hospital in Placerville, and it's not. And this is going to lead me into the next question. It's not the best building in the world, but it's serving its purpose at the moment. But when you talk about looking at the budget and you look at dollars spent, pay attention a little bit to the amount of money that we're throwing away in maintaining buildings that are so old that they would be better off being bulldozed and restarted than to continue keeping what we have. And so how do you feel about the facilities? I mean, we have a situation in our sheriff's department where the facility that they're in, it's almost, if it wasn't a law enforcement division, I don't think you could put anybody else in
Right.
there, right? So what's your opinion on making sure that our facilities are either taken care of or rejuvenated or replaced?
Well, no, I think some of them need to be replaced. I was just at a meeting where they were saying 2 of the buildings regarding that entity are just, they're not going to be putting any more money in it because they're just so bad.
Right.
They need to move. They need to find something else.
They do.
And, there comes a point where you have to do that. There's ways of doing that. I wonder, for instance, the mental health in Tahoe, they put them in with the seniors, which was, I think, a very poor decision. But they're moving them out after quite a bit of anger on the part of the seniors. But now they are going to be moving them into a building down on Lake Tahoe Boulevard, and they're going to be leasing the building. And I just have to wonder if they're going to lease the building. I mean, is it worth buying the building? Because the building's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
And so those are the kinds of questions you want to ask, And you can never really, when you're running for office, you don't have all the answers to everything.
No.
Absolutely. But you can go in and make reasonable questions and question the things that you see. And that's important, instead of just going in and letting it just all pass by you.
Well, what's happened in our county, and you basically said that passed by you. What's happened is for years and years and years, they just keep putting these things off. They'll say, "Well, I'm only going to be on the board, 8 years, and I'm out of here. Let somebody else worry about it." And you hear that all the time, and it's unfortunate. And that's what's happened in facilities here in El Dorado County. I mean, we have the same situation with animal control. There's numerous places that we can point fingers at,
Right.
and we hope that our supervisors make the best decision as to the buildings that they're going to look at. Are we going to do a lease to purchase type? There's all kinds of creative funding that we can do for these buildings, but it seems to me that nobody will just make that decision and do it. Now, we're hoping that the sheriff's department is going to be the first people to jump in line and get a new facility. And it's my understanding that we should be either hearing by now or by next week the recommendations from the site planning group. So I'm excited to hear where that's going to go, and we really need to help those guys.
And we're not just talking building in this case either. We're also talking the departments working together and the difference that makes. When you're all in the same building, there's a lot more, comrades.
You've been talking to Johnny.
Johnny who?
Sheriff DiAgostini. I can tell just by your statement. He's in here every month, and we always talk about that stuff.
I like that.
And he's right. And his point is that he's got, I think he said something like 5 outbuildings where everybody's at. They're not under one roof, and that is a problem. I mean, how do you run not only just the sheriff's department, but a government agency when everything is so spread out? It's very difficult.
Maybe that's one of the problems we have in our county government. We were talking about, you talk about longevity of your staff,
right,
and all the problems that are going on. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Yes. I have no doubts that because of some of the conditions of the facilities, they're probably not the most pleasant place to work at. I think there's some other issues in there mixed in there too, because most people can overlook a facility, but they can't overlook a bully.
Right. Well, and I worked in purchasing and personnel at the city of South Lake Tahoe, and other departments. The day I started was the day they started laying off. So I got moved around to departments for several years. I worked in police dispatch for a while, and I worked in engineering department for a while. So I have a nice little background on a lot of different departments, and it was a really good experience for me.
So let me ask you this, since you have that experience, one of the things that we don't seem to be able to do, take our HR director, for instance. We've had, I think it's been over 10 HR directors in 11 years. And there's other issues, other department heads in El Dorado County that last a year and they're out of here. what would you do to try to retain these people? I mean, if they're doing a good job and they're good people and they're going out the door,
Well, obviously,
what would you do?
Obviously, something's wrong. Now, the Board of Supervisors isn't supposed to get into the
Micromanage.
right. Not supposed to do that. However, we do have authority at the top,
Right.
and that's where you have to start. And if the top isn't working, if they can't manage these things, then
Well, I think that's a reason why
they're-
we've lost the ability to retain these good people. There's something broken in El Dorado
Absolutely.
County. And it will be your job as supervisor and all the supervisors that sit is to let's figure this out. Let's see what's going wrong here because we're bleeding talent. And it's just, let me ask you this. We'll jump topics a little bit. One of the other guests I interviewed not too long ago, is we got talking about jobs in El Dorado County, and we got talking about how do we retain some of our youth, our 30s and 40 somethings that are at their peak of their careers, but yet where do you work in El Dorado County and make a wage large enough to raise a family, a couple of kids, a house, a car, and all that? Do you have any ideas and plans on how to bring jobs in El Dorado County?
Well, I tell you, we have some of the needs already here. Okay? For instance, let's go back to aging. Our society is aging at a tremendous rate. You've heard of the silver tsunami. Okay?
All those baby boomers
that's coming.
are moving. Yeah.
Now, what that's going to mean is there's going to be a huge need for different types of senior support services. Okay? Good year-round jobs. Up in Tahoe, there's very few good year-round jobs.
Right.
Okay? But physical therapists, dance instructor, whatever it is to help the seniors stay active, to take care of them. The Commission on Aging's purpose is to keep seniors in their home as long as possible because once they go into a facility, it's expensive.
It is.
On everybody.
It is.
Okay, so we want to keep them healthy and we want to keep them in their homes.
Right.
That takes a lot of jobs to do that. And so if we can create sort of an industry around this need that we have, and it's going to be great very shortly, then I think that would bring a lot of jobs.
So we might have jobs in the medical field and some of the, like you said, the aging fields and all that. So what's your opinion on, we used to have a very active mill here in El Dorado County, right? And we used to harvest wood here on a large scale. And it's a renewable resource. If there's any lumbering, it is it. We don't have a mill here. We don't have, Michigan Cal had, over 200 employees. All gone.
Right. And that hurts really bad.
Yeah.
Especially one sector of our district.
So you're not against logging and going in there?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But I just don't know that we can get the company to come back in because obviously they're still doing the logging.
Right.
They're just milling it someplace else.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know that. Government isn't in the place.
Could you encourage them, Sierra Pacific, to come back and reopen that mill? At this point, probably not, because they took all the equipment away.
Right.
At one point, I think we had an opportunity to. So then let's explore this. One of the things that many states and locations within states will go to an IBM, an Apple, Oracle, whatever it may be, and they'll say, you know what, we really want you to be in our state. We want you to come here. And so how do they attract those companies coming into their locations? And most of them do it by incentives, either be tax incentives, infrastructure incentives, whatever it may be. Reduce the building fees, the TIM fees, whatever you got to attract larger companies here to bring more jobs. Are you with that on that? Have you studied that?
Only to a point, because I don't think it's government's role to set up businesses.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
However,
Yeah. You got to attract them, though. Now, I'm not telling you to set them
that's
up,
true.
but you've got to attract them.
that's true. And I would have no problem giving up fees or something like that to have them come in.
Okay.
But more importantly, I think, for instance, the mill. Let's go back to that for a
Okay.
second.
All right.
Okay. The people at that mill aren't going to work for IBM.
No.
Okay.
Right.
We have to find jobs for the people who have that type of work skills.
Well,
Someone who works outside.
you brought
Someone
up a
who.
good point.
Okay.
You
So
brought
we're
up a good point,
talking
yeah.
recreation.
Right.
Something along
Right,
those lines is
exactly.
what the kind of jobs we need.
Well, we certainly have a need for it. And it's the old discussion that we get in with some of the school teachers and the principals and others I've talked to. Not everybody is college bound. Not everybody,
Right.
I mean, we need plumbers, electricians, mechanics. I mean, we need people at these skill levels, and we're losing them rapidly. We're losing the ability and the industrial knowledge because the big word anytime they go in high school, by the time they graduate, is, well, where are you going to college? Everything's got to be college. Well, you know what? They can get in the workforce much faster and make more money than a person with a bachelor's degree. And so we need to attract those people to come in El Dorado County as well and start small businesses.
And it's unfortunate that a lot of our youth leave. My daughter did.
Where are you going to go work?
They were working 2 part-time jobs, seasonal jobs.
Right.
They left, moved to Vegas,
Right.
had a full-time job. We had a bad thing happen in our family. My daughter got sick, and he got a transfer. He got on with Southwest Gas and transferred back up to Tahoe.
Oh, wow, good.
But so now they're up here, but they were like everybody else. In order to get a decent job, you had to leave
Move
the
away.
area.
And that was the same situation that I think a lot of our youth are facing in El Dorado County. The fact is there's not enough jobs. And I love Obama's whole idea about, living wage. We got to get a living wage. We got to move it to $10 an hour. What's your feeling? How's that gonna? What is business gonna do when they're forced to go to that kind of level?
Well, they're gonna make cuts somewhere because they only have a limited amount of money, and it's up to them to decide where to do that. But okay, back to where the place I manage. We were having 50-60% turnover in housekeeping when I first got there.
That's big numbers.
It is.
Yeah.
But our county is pretty close to that in some
That's true.
departments.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Absolutely.
And it's not necessarily just the money that makes them leave. Okay. Some people would, are willing to take less if they're treated well. Okay. That's just because that's more important.
Right.
However, so what we did was we didn't pay them the same wages they were getting every place else. We increased it. Okay. Well, that got them to stay there a short period of time. But now I have housekeepers who've been there for 15 years now. So you need to pay them as best you can.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be mandated.
Right.
I mean, you're going to get the quality of work for the quality of your staff, depending on how you treat them and how you pay them.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's the way it
Exactly.
works.
Well, instead of depending on government to create these jobs, and that's where I'm getting back to, we got to get industry to create these jobs and come
Right.
in. I personally believe that we need to bend over backwards to try to get industry in here. I mean, there's all kinds of high-tech jobs that could have come into El Dorado County. You've lived...
So many jobs are going to Nevada.
Well...
I mean, companies. People are leaving the state.
I'm going to be honest with you.
It's really hard.
I'm going to be honest with you. If my roots weren't here in El Dorado County, now I wasn't born here. I decided I'd bring my family, my kids, and raise my kids here. I was born and raised in Santa Monica. So I really changed because my opinion and my train of thought was not in line with the super liberal mentality that some of those areas get to. But I do believe that we need to effectively bring businesses into El Dorado County by waving some kind of magic wand. Like I said, may it be TIM fees, infrastructure, whatever it may be, to try to attract those jobs so we can keep the kids here, keep the sales tax here. We need these businesses to come here and open up, and because we know we're bleeding money down to Folsom in other areas.
Right.
How do we live in a community that doesn't even have a Ford dealer anymore? I mean, there's just another good example of not taking care of what we had here. If I had been a supervisor during that period of time, I would have been over backwards to try to find somebody to stay with the automobile industry, to stay in El Dorado County. Let it go. We don't care. And that's the problem. And now we've got, everything's a fee. They don't want to call it what it is, which is a tax. Everything's a fee, right? Now we have this fire tax that those of us in the rural area, we all have to pay into Cal Fire.
Right.
What's your feeling on that one? You're aware of that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? First of all, on any budget items, there's times when you have to increase taxes. And that's not a popular thing to do.
True.
Not to anybody.
That's
it doesn't
right.
matter what you call it or anything else. It's not popular. But the public and people in general, have to understand that those things happen. I mean, expenses go up. However, it should be across the board, everybody, evenly split. It shouldn't be special districts. It shouldn't be any of those things. It should be split by everybody, not taxing just certain areas or certain people.
Okay, actually. Well, all right. So sometimes you look at our tax rolls, and some areas have additional tax or fees, or sometimes the TIM fee is a little different in different areas where you go. But so are you advocating? I'm a little confused now. Are you advocating raising taxes a little bit to attract more business?
No.
Okay, so help me here, because you mentioned nobody likes taxes, and you're absolutely right. We don't. What do you help me explain to me exactly what you meant by that statement so that we get it clear?
Well,
here.
it's just that there are times when your taxes are going to have to be raised. That's just reality, because costs go up. You're not paying the same person. The person you're paying $8 20 years ago, you're now paying $15.
Okay, so let's talk about government, because generally government pays a little bit more in private sector, or benefits are higher. That's the reason why you usually go into a government job. Benefits for you and your family and all that. So that wage situation is a little different. But when we start getting into private enterprise, and the government says, I'm demanding that you pay these people $10, $11, $12 an hour. That's a problem, right?
It's absolutely a problem.
So we're in agreement with that. We need free enterprise. We need businesses to come in here, but we need to attract them. So my opinion is we need to lower their taxes, give them a certain period of time to get in the door, get their business up and running, hire their employees, get the people they need, but help them lower the TIM fees, or help them with infrastructure, or whatever it may be, so that they feel welcome. That's what Texas is doing. That's what Nevada is doing. Why is El Dorado County different?
I don't know. I guess it's the supervisors.
So that means then when you get on the board and you become the supervisor for District 5, I would hope that you look into reasons and see what you can do to attract business into El Dorado County, so that we can get our youth hired again, and jobs that are not just janitorial or food service work. We need people with real jobs, real skills, and we need them to come here. And so I'm just hoping that you as supervisor would be willing to look at those situations and attract business.
I'm willing to look at anything that brings jobs to this area. And you know what? I am a problem solver and a troubleshooter.
Okay.
And like I said, I ask questions.
Good.
And so I come out there saying, okay, this is the problem. How are we going to fix it? And I don't want to have 2 years worth of meetings to make a decision.
Yeah, so
I
it's-
want to
you're absolutely
accomplish
right.
things.
You got to get things done, and you can't keep putting them off.
No.
Well, we're almost at the end of the show, and I'm going to throw something at you, and you may not be ready to, be ready to answer this, but I'm a very strong Second Amendment supporter. I believe in the individual's right to own firearms, and I believe that supervisors also play a part in how the county goes, how the sheriff goes. So everybody that runs for supervisors, my question is, where do you stand on the Second Amendment?
I believe everyone should be able to carry an arm if they want to.
There you go, folks. We got the answer right to the point. Gerri, you did a great job with that. And like she said, she believes in the Second Amendment, and I can't ask for better than that. You did a great job. I think, maybe as time goes on, if you feel you want to come back and maybe you have some specific things you want to talk about, give our producer a call, and she'll get you scheduled in here.
Great.
But you've been wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah.
It's been great.
I really appreciate you spending the time coming and seeing us. This will be available a few days on YouTube for all your friends and neighbors and everybody to watch it. And
Okay.
I can't thank you more, Gerri. Thank you so much for spending the time. Thank you for running, and thank you for coming and visiting Old Guy Tech TV.
It's great. Thank you so much.
All right. Hey, thank you guys out there for watching us. And remember, it's your responsibility to vote. If you don't like what's happening in El Dorado County, it's your fault if you don't get in there and vote and pay attention to what's going on. So
Please
again,
do.
that's right. This is Rob with Old Guy Tech TV. I'm here with Gerri Grego running for Supervisor District 5. We'll see you next time.